I absolutely loved In the Dark. This is a novel by Claire Allan. This was originally published this year, 2023. And I have to say, not only could I not put it down, but I'm very impressed with the fact that it's able to take a style of narration I normally don't like and make it work so well. This has a split narration. We have two protagonists, Izzy and Nora, and I'll talk more about them in a moment. And generally, it's one chapter is Izzy, one chapter is Nora. A couple of times we'd have two chapters in a row from Nora's perspective, but generally it's pretty even. And I normally hate that. I usually hate having two or more protagonists narrating the story, but actually, I found that it worked really well. So, massive credit to the novel for taking something I usually hate and making me almost like it. It worked quite well. The narrative itself is so compelling, and this will be spoiler free, not just because I tend to not give spoilers and I do thoroughly recommend it, but also because I didn't see any of this coming. The narrative is completely unpredictable, and I love that. I hate it when I work out things too early in novels. I like to be surprised, and that's exactly what we get here. So, this is spoiler free, but there is something about this that I didn't completely love, and I will discuss that at the end with a spoiler warning. I won't reveal exactly what happens at the end of the novel, but I do need to give a bit of context, so I'll give a spoiler warning for that in a little bit. This is about a woman called Nora who 7 years ago went into the woods with her daughter, and she came out of the woods without her daughter, her 4 year old daughter called Daisy, and with no memory of what happened. And obviously, over the 7 years that have followed, a lot of people have accused her of hurting her daughter, and this whole lack of memory is just an act. But Nora is certain that that's not what happened. And obviously, over those 7 years, she's been determined to find her daughter, believing or hoping that she's still alive, but also concerned that if she is still alive, how is she being treated? She does also have a new husband and a new son, a little boy. And I guess understandably, she's kind of struggled to bond with him because she's so fixated on Daisy and finding out what happened there. So she's got a lot of personal problems going on. Then we have Izzy. And Izzy is a documentary filmmaker, and she's contacted Nora alongside Tom, her colleague, to try and create this documentary. And Nora agrees because Nora wants answers. So she agrees to help out. And obviously, as the narrative unfolds, Izzy digs deeper into this story, and well, we begin to find out more. A lot of this is based on this forum, this true crime forum, where a lot of internet sleuths like to talk about the case. It's a very high profile case, as you can imagine, and a lot of it involves information on these message boards, and that could have been done badly. I've read a lot of crime fiction where we have a lot of interaction with the internet, and sometimes it's not done very well, but absolutely it's utilized perfectly here. We get some snippets of messages that have been written on this message board, but it's not abundant. And I think the balance there is really great. So that's something else that definitely works in this book's favor. And I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It's just so unpredictable. I hadn't worked out what was happening. I was emotionally invested. I wanted to find out what was going on. It's generally very well written. There are a couple of grammatical errors here and there, but I think they're probably more typing errors than they are actual grammatical errors. And that's absolutely fine. Nothing too much that it meant my enjoyment was hindered. I really thoroughly enjoyed this. And as I said, I couldn't put it down. I read it in three sittings, and I read the second half, pretty much the second half in one sitting. I hadn't intended on doing it. I was just meant to read for about half an hour, and I just kept going, and I couldn't stop, and I absolutely loved it. As I said, there was one thing that I didn't love. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love what happened with it. But I'll discuss that with a spoiler warning in a moment. But to sum up very briefly, In the Dark is a brilliant read. It's gripping, it's compelling, it's unpredictable. Our narrators are likable as well. Nora and Izzy are both very likable narrators, which I think is really important if you're going to emotionally get behind both of their journeys. And I really thoroughly enjoyed it. So I guess a tiny spoiler from now, and I'll discuss an aspect that I didn't love and an aspect that I didn't feel was necessary. And I don't think it worked as well as it perhaps could have done. And because it didn't feel like it needed to be there and it didn't work very well, I didn't love it. So, spoilers from now. I have nothing else to say about the novel except this one point. And the bit that I don't think worked very well is the fact that Nora couldn't remember what happened. There is kind of an explanation given as to why this happened. She went into extreme shock mode because at the same time as her having this horrific encounter of losing her child, she's also having this horrible memory of her childhood triggered because of the encounter with somebody from her past. And it's just so much for her to take in that her brain goes into protection mode and just wipes everything. And I understand why it happened. And I get that it was included there to kind of throw the reader off of the trail, to kind of suggest that maybe Nora did have some involvement in it. But because they were playing hide and seek, and that's how Daisy went missing, this whole memory aspect was irrelevant because she could have just not seen where she went when she went missing, and that's how she doesn't know what happened. So there was no reason for her to lose her memory. And even if she was maintaining her innocence, people are still going to accuse her. We see this with, well, one certain very high profile missing child case from 2007, where the parents are still being accused by people of having hurt their children. They haven't lost their memories, but those accusations are still there. So it just felt really unnecessary. And I don't really think the part of the narrative where she started to have these memories coming back to her, I don't think they worked very well. So that part of it just felt unnecessary, and it didn't work as well as it perhaps could have done. So that I didn't love. But that being said, it didn't ultimately hinder my enjoyment of the novel. I still really enjoyed it, still thoroughly recommend it, but just as a point of criticism and something that's worth bearing in mind when you read it, that aspect of it felt like it was trying too hard to be too mysterious, and the entire narrative would have worked completely without that aspect of it. So I feel like it just didn't work as well as it could have done. But that aside, it's a brilliant book and one that I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed.